guys, if you do not know, my name is Zoya and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, hello. Welcome to part 2 of the series. So if you haven't watched my first video, I suggest you go watch that first before you watch this one. This video is going to be very different from the last one I've done, but I'm still sticking to the same topic, that is color. So let's just jump right into it. So today we're going to be talking about black and white and grayscale comic books and graphic novels. Now, black and white comic books are almost this dying form of art within the comic book and the graphic novel genre. And this is mainly because color has almost gone digital. And like I mentioned in my previous video, color plays a huge impact on storytelling. And besides that, it makes it really easy to consume in both print as well as digital form. But black and white still has a very special significance in the world of digital art and color. To begin, let's just talk a little bit about how comic books were printed originally. In the beginning, comics were printed using a 4-dot or a 5-dot color newspaper, and they used really cheap newsprint paper. Why? Because it was really cheap. These comics were printed using letterpress and a method known as spot color. Now, what is spot color? It is a process wherein the graphic element is printed using spots. One color at a time, one layer at a time. And they used this because it was so cheap. Color came in much later because it took so much time to develop and it was very expensive. Unlike my last video, I'm going to take this time to talk about how awesome black and white comics are. And contrary to popular belief, I don't think modern comics really have to be in color in order for them to be good. And I know a lot of you are thinking, Zoya, what's wrong with you? You literally made a whole video telling us how important color is. And it is important, and I stand by everything I said. But just like everything else, deciding whether or not a comic requires color involves a lot of trade-offs you need to consider. By saying that, I want to say that I'm not here to pit the black and white comics and the colored comics against each other. Rather, I'm here to talk about how they both have their own charm and how they're both so impactful. I'll be listing a few reasons as to why artists still tend to stick to black and white, and while doing so, I will also be providing a few pictures to give you a better visual understanding, and all these pictures belong to really talented artists online, so I'm going to link all their handles down in the bio, so please go ahead and check them out. It puts extra emphasis on line work. What I mean is, readers can often find color a lot taken, and thus takes away the attention from the art itself. So in black and white, patterns, shapes, lines, they all take center stage and become very prominent. Prominent lighting and shading. Just like the previous point, with black and white, characters and backgrounds can really be shown off, as well as amplify emotions in scenes. Since I'm not much of an artist myself, I'll be linking a video down below that explains this point in depth. And there are just some drawings that can't be expressed with color. For that, let's take a look at some of the artworks from a few mangas. The first image is from the manga Death Note. This scene shows the death of the character Light. He dies of a sudden heart attack, and the white lines that are coming out of his chest gives off an effect that his heart stopped. The second image is from the manga Aku no Hana. The line work and shading in this image gives off a very distorted and almost eerie feeling to the classroom. The whole image gives off a very uneasy vibe that only can be expressed in black and white. If you can look at the flow, it too gives a sort of distorting feeling that makes you feel dizzy. Since I mentioned manga, we have to talk about it. It's probably the most apt example of black and white comics. Now, manga is a Japanese comic book that generally uses black, white, or grayscale tones in their artwork. And these tones are known as screen tones. So these screen tones have different patterns to create different graphics, and these graphics can be tiny little dots to massive landscapes. Now, manga is almost always never in color, and probably the only colorful thing about it is its cover. Now, I'm sure most of you know what anime is, and anime is literally the movie version of a manga, because most of the storylines that the anime follows is based off the plot of a manga. Why is manga still in black and white when the rest of the world is moving on to color? Now, I have a few reasons, so I'm just going to list them out for you here. The first one, and I mentioned this in the beginning of the video as well, low cost. cheaper the paper, cheaper the production, and that means lesser money you pay to buy the manga. And my second point is kind of linked with this because I'm going to talk about their past and their history. And I think these artists like to stick to tradition because during the postmodern war manga and the weekly and the monthly periodicals, they'd be published on really cheap newspapers and cheap paper. And a third point, and the point that I think is very important, is that there is a shortage of staff. So most of the times these artists, they start out alone and they don't really have people helping them. And in order to meet deadlines and to get paid on time, they have to focus on only one art form. And rather than focusing on numerous art forms, they just focus on this one so that they can give you a proper detailed product instead of something super messy. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I really hope it helped you realize that black and white comics are really cool, and just because they don't have any color in them doesn't make them any less impactful or any less entertaining than the ones